Welcome to the Oral History Podcast, which features stories from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com, where Oklahomans have given generously of their time to tell their life story for present-day listeners and for the generations to come. Our entire collection is available at voicesofoklahoma.com. By subscribing to our podcast, you will be notified of new Oklahoma oral history podcasts. So now listen to another interesting storyteller from voicesofoklahoma.com.
Allan Trimble won more state high school football championships in 22 seasons at Jenks than any head coach in Oklahoma history. However, his first state title as head coach was with the Jenks girls track team in 1995. Allan was born August 14, 1963, and was a graduate of Cleveland High School in Northeastern State. After starting his career as Owasso's linebackers coach in 1987, Trimble moved to Jenks as an assistant in 1990 and was named defensive coordinator in 1993, helping the Trojans win a state title that season. He led the Trojans to Class 6A state titles in his first 6 seasons as head coach. Trimble had a 242-41 overall record, and his Jenks teams made 17 state finals appearances. The Trojans only missed reaching the semifinals of the state's largest classification twice under him, losing earlier in the playoffs on each occasion. Since 2016, Coach Trimble battled ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, which caused his death December 1, 2019. He was 56. In August 2017, the home of the Trojans was officially renamed Allan Trimble Stadium. Be sure to visit our bookstore to order the Allan Trimble book, The Golden Years. Don King, Jenks Trojans football play-by-play broadcaster, conducted this interview with Coach Allan Trimble in April 2018 for Cox Communications. The recording was never released until now on the oral history website, voicesofoklahoma.com.
Well, first of all, let's talk about your career at Cleveland High School. Your senior year, you get derailed because of an injury.
Yeah, I tell you, I enjoyed my Ron Wolf came to town my junior year, and probably one of those coaches that influenced me to be a coach. Just loved him. He's a great motivator. Had a good junior year, worked out really hard this summer, and we go to Bristow to face Bill Scott's Purple Pirates. They were great back in those days, and we had finished scrimmaging. We'd done very, very well. The Tigers had represented, and we were on our way back to the bus. The scrimmage was over, and Bill Scott said, "You know, Coach, we just can't end like that. We all come back and go one more round." So we get our gear back on. We go back out on the field. The first play, I get hit. We're on defense. I get hit in the back of the knee and tear 3 ligaments and miss my senior football season, miss wrestling season, make it back for the regional baseball tournament. So it was a rough senior year on me and my father.
3-sport athlete, as you just mentioned. Baseball might have been your favorite sport back as a kid.
Yeah, it might have been my best. I loved baseball. Of course, I started playing it in Cleveland. I remember I still have a baseball, the 4-, 5-, and 6-year-old MKNO league. So, but I loved baseball. Being a small town, all your friends played in the summer. We played as well on the high school team. So I love baseball. Played all the way through my 18th birthday in American Legion.
I'll be darned. Ron Wolf, you mentioned him as your head coach. Interestingly enough, a Jenks alum.
Jenks alumni, and great friends with the Harper brothers, who, of course, are famous Jenks guys. And Coach Wolf went on and coached high school at Owasso for a number of years before he went to Cleveland and became the head coach there.
You go to NSU, and that's really where you got the love of coaching, because you couldn't play your first year rehabbing your knee, right?
Yeah, and I not having very many people in my family that went to college, it really wasn't emphasized that much. I mean, the oil field was doing really well. Everyone that I knew, made good money, and that's just what they did. So, and no one told me that I probably wasn't good enough to go play in the Big 8. I wasn't very big, but at least I wasn't very aggressive, and so anyway, I hadn't had any plans, especially getting hurt. My defensive line coach that I ended up playing for, Ronnie Jones, called me late in the summer and asked me what I was doing. I said, "Well, Coach, I got hurt. He said, why don't you come to Tahlequah and, walk on and we'll see what happens." That was it. That was the only recruiting call I ever got. When my dad and mom dropped me off in Tahlequah in August, that's the first time I'd ever been to the town. Never been to the college, never visited, and couldn't pass a physical, so I had to rehab and go work out all fall long, and then finally walked on in the spring and and ended up earning a spot on the roster.
But while you were hurt, you would go in and help the coaches, or at least sit in with them while they broke down film?
Oh, yeah, and I did it all through my career. I was a defensive player and ended up, when you're average, in ability, you have to make up for that in other ways. So I always was one that loved to know I watched a lot of film. I studied my game plan. I really wanted to know about the other opponent. And I would go in on Sundays with the college staff and just watch how they did it, watch how they broke down film and, cuss and discuss your opponents. And I don't know, I fell in love with the strategy of it.
That's where you and I met, was in the oil patch. You were working for an oil field supply store in Cleveland. I sold oil field supplies. And I remember asking you, going into your senior year at NSU, what do you want to do when you graduate? And you told me, I think I want to be a math teacher and coach.
I know. Can you believe that? I kind of remember that. It had to be in like 85 or 86. And I think I asked you, what are you going to do? And you said, well, I like communications, radio, and I think I'd like to go do that. So
I said, maybe I'll be doing your games someday, and here we are.
Yeah, so tell me that's an accident, right? So
right.
They say words are very powerful, but I do remember that, and go look, 30-some years later, here we are.
Yeah, exactly. So you end up in Owasso as an assistant coach for a few years, and then you come to Jenks. How did you end up at Jenks?
Well, my mathematics degree. One of the best words of advice I ever got in college was from my defensive coordinator, Tom Eckert, who said, if you're going to get into high school coaching, it's your teaching degree that will get you every job. And he called me Alzado. He goes, go get you a real degree and you'll always have a job. So I have a mathematics computer science degree, and in 1990, Joe Holliday, the athletic director here, along with Perry Beaver, had a couple of math openings. I applied and was fortunate enough to get on Coach Beaver's staff here as a math teacher.
Yeah, you had some great players here when you were an assistant. One of them comes to mind that, oddly enough, here you are many years later in Louisiana, and you think, I think I'll call Sean Wells, who ended up going to LSU and I think played in the pros for him.
Oh, yeah, fabulous player. And, Sean, when I was an assistant coach, I couldn't figure out why Coach Lancaster allowed me to coach the offensive line, because I'd never coached it, and it's one of the most technical and difficult. I mean, you really have to know what you're doing, but Sean Wells was one of many great players, and of course recruited and offered by everybody in the country. Chose to go back home. He was originally from Ruston, Louisiana, but he went, started 3 or 4 years at LSU, and then I think with the Falcons for a while. But long story short, just a couple of years ago, I'm down in New Orleans on a mission trip, and I saw a Facebook post that he's having a house party. He built a new house. So I have my daughter, I don't know how to do it, I have my daughter message him, and we ended up crossing the Pontchartrain Lake there and helping him christen his new house. We spent 2 or 3 hours together. It was wonderful getting caught up with him.
What did Tori say when she saw the house or saw him?
Well, you have to realize he's almost 6'6", and she goes, Dad, he has huge furniture and huge doors. But so in that living room, there were several $100 million worth of NFL offensive linemen that were there celebrating, and they're all massive men. And Tori was young, and she was walking around with this group of Goliaths, and she just couldn't get over it.
So you end up here at Jenks as an assistant. Oddly enough, 1995 is a great year for Jenks. They go to the semifinals. They play Midwest City at OSU. You lose in overtime. Your offensive coordinator, you and I both agree, it's one of the greatest games we've ever seen or been involved with at Jenks. And yet you weren't really working here full time. Tell us that story.
Well, it's a tough story, but you mentioned that semifinal game would have to go into easily my top 3 most exciting, hard-fought, walk off the field after the game, even though you lose in overtime, and say, you know what, I don't know if I'd have done anything different. Midwest City was loaded, but yeah, midway through that 95 season, I became, a little frustrated and just philosophically felt like the environment was just being a little bit too tough for high school age kids. Just some of the demands that we were putting on them, things like that. And I just always said, if you're not going to do it right, you probably need to go do something else. And my college roommate, Brian, had been pressuring me forever to actually go work in my degree field, which, is pre-engineering. So long story short, I accepted a job at Coke Oil and Gas in Wichita, Kansas in like October. So, but I was always taught not to let your kids down. So I ended up commuting, got out of the classroom teaching, but still kept my coaching job, commuting from Wichita 3, sometimes 4 days a week to finish out that season, and just loved that group of kids. They were just, it was a wonderful season, and we were one play away, you know.
So you're driving back and forth, just the coach. So in 95, after the season, you're back in Wichita.
Yeah.
You interview for the Owasso job. You don't get it. You tell Courtney, your wife, and you're getting ready to have a baby. Hey, it looks like we're just going to stay in Wichita. And then you get the call from Jenks.
Yeah, just a ridiculous set of circumstances. Yeah, we sold a house. We moved to Wichita. We're fixing to have a baby. I took a promotion. I'm working in El Dorado. Interview for the Owasso job. Thought it went really, really well. Got a call back. Thought it was going to happen. During that time, got an offer to move to Pine Bend, Minnesota with Coke Oil and Gas. So, needless to say, my wife being 9 months pregnant, there was a lot going on. Didn't get the Owasso job. Was a little bit disappointed. And then you mentioned Gary Jackson, the Booster Club president at Jenks that time, contacted me. There was an opening, and I had to go in and ask Courtney, do you mind if I go try that again? And she just shook her head at 9 months pregnant and, you know, whatever you want to do. So the rest is history. 3 interviews later, they offered me the job.
Start in 96, a great team, but yet, oddly enough, you get a chance to meet Midwest City again in the championship. Yeah,
and I said, if I remember right, they were going for their third championship in a row. Yeah, you know, Don, the 96, I remember Tyler, my oldest daughter, was born in February. If I remember right, I signed my contract in March and inherited a ridiculously talented group of kids, especially the junior class. Senior class, pretty good too. Corey Cowlins, Jerry Wisney, don't get me wrong. But I also inherited kind of a divided community and kind of a divided school when Jenks decided to part ways with Ron Lancaster. There was definitely some division. Some people really were loyal to Coach, and he had done a fabulous job. Other people were okay with seeing him go. And there was quite a bit of, you know, torment and just different things to fix. So we buckled down, hired Tag Gross as my offensive coordinator, Matt Hennessy as my defensive coordinator, tried to just bring them in and take care of what was really important, and that was bringing the kids together, and made a pretty good run at it.
You're down 17-7 to Midwest City, and this Rocky Kalmus is one of the stars on that team. Had a quad bruise, and yet your conversation with him going into the halftime locker room is priceless.
Yeah, let me just go back, because he was severely injured the week before. I mean, no one that I know of would have even tried. And so right before halftime, we were getting outplayed. We'd outsmart ourselves. We weren't doing a very good job on defense. But right before half, we got a turnover, and Tag Gross wanted to call the halfback pass. So the only people we had worked with is Rocky throwing the pass. Well, Rocky hadn't been playing running back because he couldn't run. So I just remember Rocky standing in the back of the huddle, warming his arm up. Because, you know, Rocky was a great pitcher, and his dad had always told him, now don't throw a ball unless you're good and warm. So I commented on the headset, you know, Tag, we're going to get fired because everyone in the stadium knows it's a halfback pass because this is Rocky's first play. Anyway, Brett Butler executes it perfect, little crack flag. We get a little bit of momentum going in at halftime. We're still behind. Walking up the ramp, Rocky's a little frustrated because he's hurt and he's not getting to play. And he looked me and Tag right in the eye and he goes, if you'll give me the damn ball, we'll win the game. And Tag looks at me. I said, okay, give him the ball. Let's see how it goes, because he was hurt, but and we won, just like he said.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns, I think, in the second half.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
It was crazy.
Rocky Kalmus went on to play at OU, where he was an All-American, and his senior season won the Butkus Award, which goes to the nation's outstanding collegiate linebacker. Rocky Kalmus also played a few seasons with the Tennessee Titans and still lives in Nashville. You're listening to an interview with Allan Trimble and myself, Don King, after he announced his retirement. And it's a presentation from Cox Communications, who has never aired this particular interview, from April of 2018.
So then that leads you into 97, and I don't want to necessarily go year by year, but 97 is a special team because that, a lot of experts say, that might be the best high school football team the state's ever had. The Legion of Doom Rocky Calmus and many others. We'll run down some of the names, but you didn't give up 100 yards rushing, not just in the game, but for the whole season.
Yeah, the neat thing about that, besides having fabulous players, and we could list a lot of great ones, Ronnie Jones, the guy I played for, was working for Buddy Ryan at the time. He had made it all the way to the NFL, and I had called him, bothered him, hey, can you send me Coach Ryan's Bear defense? I've got a couple of great linebackers. I've got a great defensive end, and I would love to, just give me anything. And he said, Coach Ryan's having none of that. They don't give away any secrets. But about 2 weeks later, in the mail comes this FedEx package, and it's Buddy Ryan's defense, except it's got all the words cut off. It's just X's and O's. You don't know who they are, but we got it. And Matt Hennessy, we put in the Bear defense, and we had a niche. Not only did we have a niche, but we had some guys that could really make it go, and we gave people fits that year defensively.
You had 12 players on the roster that went on to play D1, and mostly in football, but some in some other sports.
Yeah, two great baseball players. You got Buddy Blair, who was a fabulous safety. That was Buddy's sophomore year. And then you also have Bo Davis, who was a college baseball player up at Missouri. Both of those kids were 10th graders and saw limited playing time just because the guys in front of them were so good. Guys like Jason Beckstrom and Brett Butler and John Johnson, some of those guys that were college DBs. It was a pretty tough to get on the field that year as a defensive player.
And I would have to say, at least in my tenure, that's as good a defensive crew as I've ever seen.
Yeah. Of that 96 or that 97 era, sophomores who became All-Staters, juniors who became All-Staters, and seniors that year that were All-Staters, total 14 players. That's how good you guys were at that time.
Well, I remember sitting down at the end of the 97 season with and I'll leave someone off, but with Rocky, with Sean Mahan, with Jason Lohr, with Brad Hawkins, with Justin Dixon, with Brett Butler, and I know there are more. But back then there were only 3 All-State categories. You could only, if you nominated every one of them, you could only get 6. And we had 8 guys go to major universities that could start. Lohr started at Nebraska as a freshman.
Mahan went on to great things.
Ridiculous college career at Notre Dame and the NFL. But they all, just like they always did throughout their high school career, we really don't care, Coach. Nominate us if you want to. It's okay. It'll be fine. So we had a lot of All-Staters and some more that could have been.
A team that defensively gave up 1 yard, if that, per carry the entire season. That's how dominant they were.
Yeah, and that occurred in the second half of the Moore semifinal game. We got way ahead of Moore, 40-something to nothing at halftime, if I remember, and they were a great team. And we put our younger guys in, and Moore had a great Division I tailback. He was a fabulous player, and our younger guys had a tough time, and he ran for over 100 yards in the second half of that game, and that was the first time all season statistically that our defense had given up positive rushing yards. They were a little disappointed.
0.2 yards per rush, 6 touchdowns all season giving up via the run. And then you had Rocky Calmus back and Jason Lohr leading the defense, as you mentioned, along with Buddy Blair and Hawkins and so many others. But you had a linebacker, too, that led the team. Hill.
Yeah, Michael Hill.
Yeah, Michael Hill.
Well, yeah, Michael Hill was probably and I've known Michael his whole life. We went to the same church together. Michael was really the only, and this is no disrespect, he's the only one that didn't really look like he belonged out there. He was undersized. He was about 5'9". But the beauty of Michael's career is he played right behind Sean Mahan, Jason Lohr, Brad Hawkins, and Justin Dixon. He never got blocked one time ever in his life. And his senior year, he made 132 tackles and went on to play at Central Arkansas. So Michael was a fabulous player. And, again, just that typical Jenks Trojan guy, been there his whole life and had a great year his senior year.
And the Hill family tree continued at Jenks for years.
Oh, they've been around forever, you bet.
You never had to worry about that team, did you?
Well, they were rowdy. They were a rowdy bunch. But no, and honestly, probably the quietest guy on the team was Sean. But he also, when he opened his mouth, they knew it was important enough to listen. Sean was the one that kind of set that tempo. Obviously, Rocky was the spark plug. But you also had some really mature leaders that decided that group really wanted to be special. And Coach Hennessy did a great job of challenging them, because when you're really good, you got to come up with some ways to make them want to get better. And they did. One of them was the stats.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You bring up Sean Mahan, who is an interesting example of what you were as a coach and a mentor, because Sean had lost his parents at a young age, right?
Yeah, Sean lost his father right before his senior season to just a sudden death, and then when he went to Notre Dame, he lost his mother, I believe, his freshman year when he was redshirted. So that kid went through a lot of heartache at a young age, and I think he would let you know that football and the Jenks community is one of the things that kind of helped rally him through a really difficult part of his life.
And went on to a great career in the NFL, as you mentioned, and has given back to the school and to the program since he's retired. 98's an interesting season. Here you go in looking for your third straight. Matt McCoy, Ben Bowling are both quarterbacks, and yet you have to make a decision there.
Yeah, and not only both quarterbacks, but had been, rival quarterbacks all the way through the youth program back in the day. The good news is they're both fabulous players. But here's the thing, and I don't know how it worked out, but probably credit Tag Gross for being able to paint that picture of putting the team first. Matt was a very capable quarterback, but he ended up going to OU to play safety. So, he's a ridiculously good athlete. Ben Bowling probably geared more to be an offensive player. That's kind of our decision. And when Matt and Ben decided that Ben would play quarterback and Matt would go play receiver and safety, we got really, really good. And they really came together. And we suffered a couple of really tough losses early. Mm-hmm. We got beat by Booker T in the season opener. You have to remember we were several games in a row, so people had forgot how to lose. So we lost a couple of games, and everybody thought the boat was sinking. But honestly, when Ben and Matt kind of took that team over, we got really good again with a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, you lost to Booker T in the season opener by one, lost here. The last time Union played here, 55-45.
Yes.
Walking into the old locker room over on the West Stadium, after Union had beat us 55-45, we had given up 11 miles of offense to their team. Our defense was very young, brand new defensive coordinator, Darren Melton, in town. So we had lost a defensive coordinator. We had graduated about 10, Division I starters on defense. So a bunch of new guys. And I remember telling the boys, hey, I want to, you all played great. We played hard, 55-45 against what's easily the best team in Oklahoma. But I want to remind you that Rocky Kalma, Sean Mahan, and all those really, really good guys, they don't play here anymore. They play, in the Big 8 conference. We're going to have to grow up and get better. And they really kind of took that to heart. They really clicked. We're going to have to go play and get better. And they started chipping away. We were not a great team early, but, man, we finished the season very, very strong.
And then you face Union, and I know that had to feel good to have another crack at that.
Well, it felt good with the exception of Danny Morris and Josh Blankenship and Michael Johnson and Jerome Janae, all big-time Division I players. They had broken, I think, every offensive record. They averaged almost 49 points a game, and their defense was just devastating too. But I was really happy the way our team had come along. We were not a flashy team by any means, but we were a very, very good team. I remember Ben Bowling had a broken bone in his back or broken ribs, and I know that he couldn't practice very much the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And we had some challenges, but our kids were ready to go, and we went behind early to Union in a great crowd, like 20-some thousand. But we hung in there, and I told them, the longer we could stay in the game, the longer we could push them and make them have to execute to try to beat us, the better off we'd be. And, Ben Bowling he went crazy. He made some of the greatest runs in the second half. Matt McCoy, Curtis Brumble, all those guys really did a fabulous job in that game.
Comes back and wins at 41-28.
Yeah, Don, and I've said this more than once, that particular championship game stands out to me as probably my most proud moment as a coach, in the fact that I believe that team overcame more obstacles and grew further and improved more than any that we had. Be able to keep enough pressure on a very seasoned Union team and hold out and win, that was a big, big deal. That was a big season right there.
One of the 10th graders was Bobby Klink, who would go on and have a great career. Along in 2000, when Kewan Jones made a name for himself, because here you guys, now that Union and Jenks have established themselves as great rivals, obviously, through the 90s, Now you play each other at TU in a regular season game, and that's the Kewan last play 41-37 game.
Yes, and honestly, I've said this before, one of the more frustrating games of my career. We turned the ball over. We got a kick block. You're
behind 16 points.
Yeah, twice, right? And so I spent most of the second half drawing up my post-game speech on, hey, we've got to do better. You didn't deserve to win. And I learned that night that no matter what, while there's still time on the clock, go ahead and coach, go ahead and believe in your kids, and and trust your coaches, because Wes McCaleb was the offensive coordinator. We had one timeout left. We had a fabulous field goal kicker in Tyler Wilkie. He could really bomb it. So the textbook tells you, throw the ball outside, conserve the clock, try to kick the field goal and tie the game. Well, Wes said, no, Coach, he goes, I think we can, the way they're lining up, we should run, our option route, and I think if they do what they do, we'll be able to get a big one down the middle. I said, Wes, we can't do it. They tackle us. We got to burn our timeout. We're done. There's only 20 seconds to go. He goes, Coach, I really think it'll work. Okay, run it. That's all I said. I just remember saying that and taking my headset off, because if it didn't work, we were done. Mm-hmm. And, McCoy coaches Kewan up a little bit, because that's not Kewan's regular position. And,
right.
And there's a lot of moving parts based on what they do is what Kewan had to do. He did it correctly, and Blaine Cooper got a great block downfield. I'll never forget it. And I will never forget the deafening roar of the crowd. It was definitely a top 2 or 3 moment in my life there.
No question.
They want to at least get to midfield in the next couple of plays. So they have a chance, and with that guy, you always have a chance. Jones to the 50. Somebody better catch him. I don't believe what I've just seen. I do not believe what has just happened. I do not believe what has just happened at Skelly Stadium with 8 seconds remaining on the clock. Well, there's 8 seconds left. What's Union going to do?
Ripley wouldn't believe what we've seen here tonight in Skelly Stadium. You can believe anything could happen in the last 8 seconds.
Tyler Wilkie now puts it to a 4-point game, and so Union to win's got to score 6. Take a look at how Kewan Jones set this up. Great work, guys, on the ground.
His team come out, and he's going to make a little curl pattern right back into the middle, and Matt McCoy finds him. Then he picks up the great blocks coming from the near side. And once again, no arm tackling on Kewan Jones, and he's got the speed.
Certainly some other great moments at the end of the Jenks Union regular season games that go on as well. That 2000 team goes undefeated. You beat Union again pretty handily in the championship game in 2000. In 2001, you're to face Union again, and then you and Coach Blankenship have to make a very uncomfortable call to each other and make the decision on 9/11.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was in my old office over at the football stadium talking to a friend on the phone, and I remember saying, oh, my gosh, he was watching the news. I mean, he watched it. So I'll never forget where I was. And, it shocks you so bad you don't know how to respond. Coach Blankenship and I talked numerous times, along with the administration, just saying, do we let a terrorist attack take us out of what we do? We're not going to let these guys, we're going to go do what we do. But then on the other side, and I think maybe the better decision we made was to honor everybody that suffered such a devastating loss, and to join the country in, just meditation and silence. We decided to call it off. And looking back, I'm glad we did.
I remember my younger son, I think, might have been involved in the program at that time. When practice comes around that afternoon, what do you talk to the kids about after something like that has happened?
I don't recall directly what we said, but I would bet you money we mentioned the same thing. This is an amazing tragedy. It's a time where we as a country have to rally behind each other. I'm sure, as most football coaches say, you never want to waste a tragedy. You want to make sure it's a teaching moment, and we probably talked about patriotism, and you know how kids are. We want to go play. If it's a game, we want to go play. Same way with coaches, but hopefully they learned a good lesson there and, putting others ahead of yourself.
You're listening to an interview with Allan Trimble and myself, Don King, after he announced his retirement. And it's a presentation from Cox Communications, who has never aired this particular interview, from April of 2018.
2001, later in the season, your quarterback Jeff Hirschberg gets hurt. You bring in Keith Jones. Great example, many examples of kids getting hurt. As you go into the playoffs, you're searching for a replacement, and another kid steps in. Keith Jones did. You went on and won the 2001 state championship at OSU over Putnam North. But the team when you look at that team, a linebacking trio that maybe was the best ever, Garrett Mills, Jay Henry, and Lawrence Benson.
Yeah, three, as we would say in football, three cat daddies. And, Lawrence went on to Oklahoma State, had a great career, spent some time in the NFL. Jay Henry, an All-American at West Virginia.
Academic All-American as well.
And Garrett Mills, of course, went to the University of Tulsa, broke all kinds of records as a tight end, and then in the NFL for 5 or 6 years. Jay and Garrett, both salutatorians at Jenks High School, so they were brilliant, they were athletic. And don't forget, Brian Pickerel rushing the passer. That defense was ridiculous, too. But I would just tell you, I remember Hirschberg tearing his ACL here at home against Stillwater, if I remember right. We took him over on the sideline. Coach Ray looked him over, taped him up. He went back in, we knew, and he made it one play. So we called timeout. I remember the offensive huddle coming over. We put Keith Jones in the game. His eyes were as big as silver dollars. And I remember Kurt Seifried, one of our great linemen that played at Oklahoma State, saying, "We got this." And like you mentioned, that rallying cry from the seniors was that's just how we did it. We had a guy that hadn't played a meaningful down all year go in and play like Fran Tarkington. So it was fun.
Yeah. And so that's the 01. You're in the middle of the 36 straight wins.
You're listening to an interview with Allan Trimble and myself, Don King, after he announced his retirement. And it's a presentation from Cox Communications, who has never aired this particular interview, from April of 2018.
02 doesn't quite end up as you would have liked. People think the sky is falling after 02. You start in 03, and people still think it's falling because I think you lose 2 of your first 3 games in 03. And yet, you had a good junior class. Andrew Brewer, quarterback, went on to play at Northwestern. Jesse Meyer, a wide receiver, went on to play at TU. Chad Morris at TU. But you had a senior class that really didn't have much experience, and a spacey class, if you don't mind me saying so. I mean, you just had a group of guys that you never knew if they were engaged or not, and yet they'd show up on Friday night and win, and went on and won a state title.
Yeah, and, really rallied together because, as you mentioned, that group of seniors, Willie Bull and, if I remember right, Colin Batts and some of those kids,
Matt Felty,
they really gelled up at the end. The last, 4 or 5 games, they really came together. And as I recall, we beat, I believe, 2 or 3 district champions in the playoffs to go win it. So they pulled it together at the right time and really played well at the end.
In 03, you won the state championship at OU. They had Reggie Smith, a great player on that particular team. You're down, I think it's 10-0.
Yes.
And you go in, try to punch it in before halftime instead of kicking the field goal. So you're down, and you get denied. So you're down 10-0, and then you come back in the second half rally and win final score.
Yeah.
So,
and another valuable coaching lesson learned. You've got Chase Beeler at left tackle. He was a youngster but a fabulous player, played at OU and Stanford. You have Freddie Carolina, arguably one of the more physical guys we've ever had. No timeouts left. We got the ball on the 1-yard line. Well, hey, what do you guys want to do? Run the ball. Let's go. Well, that sounds great if you make it. But if you don't make it, the time runs out and you don't get another play. So credit Coach Trimble for making a bad decision there. But I told him at halftime, I said, you guys, the great news is we will play better in the second half. There is no way we cannot play better. And if you guys will just do what we're supposed to do, we'll win the game. We pitched a defensive jewel because Santa Fe was loaded. The Smith kid was a first-round draft pick. Our defense, considering our talent level, played at a ridiculous level. And we hung in there, made a couple of big plays on offense, and ended up maybe stealing one right there. We did good in 2003.
Speaking of OU, you played a couple of games at OU, a semifinal win over Lawton that was hard fought, and then this championship game in 03. What was it like to play at OU? Because you grew up a Sooner fan.
Oh man, it was surreal. I mean, I had got to watch. I went to Coach Switzer's high school camp in 1981. So I mean, I was a huge fan. But to actually go out there on that field and it's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, you think about the excitement and everything. You got to be careful and pull yourself back in a little bit. But some great memories of that. That game against Lawton was just, we had to hit a great fake punt. I think it was Ben Barber hit Holmes. It was just it was a great football game.
I remember you saying Kewan was frustrating in that game. Finally, you wore Lawton down a little bit to where he took control.
Isaac Norman was one of my favorite players because he was, it's an understatement to say that he was undersized, little bitty guy.
Drummer.
It still is. Still a fabulous musician. But he had mentioned in a press conference before that game that he would love to make a Kewan type play, and go figure, in the biggest stage of his life, in the biggest game, and as I recall, against Dominic Franks, who played in the NFL with Jake Strain at quarterback. Isaac goes out and runs a double move late in the game and scores the game-winning touchdown. I will never forget it, especially because it was 5'6" versus 6'2", and he went out and ran a great route and made a great play. I was so proud of him.
Strain will roll out to the right side. He's got good protection. He will unload it, and the ball is caught! Jenks will score! It's Isaac Norman with 18 seconds remaining.
Well, I think we talked about maybe scoring too quick in there. This is incredible. This is unbelievable. Ripley wouldn't believe this game. There you see the replay. Strain going back and just picking out Norman. And then Norman just outruns the secondary all the way down for the go-ahead touchdown.
Isaac Norman is the kid I talked about a moment ago who once dreamed about playing in this game as a little guy. And now he's still a little guy, a 5'6" senior, into the end zone with an amazing touchdown. And Woodward trying to make it a 4-point game. Union would have to get a touchdown to win. And by golly, there's enough time to do it. 18 seconds to go. It's now 47-44.
Is that not Isaac Norman's first catch of the night?
I believe so. And it's down now to the last 9 seconds. There's that quick pass to the sideline. Borksmiller, he did not get out of bounds. And this game is over. Jenks with an incredible comeback, 48-44.
06, week 2, it's Union, it's 9-6. Kevin Wright's the new head coach. That was kind of different.
Oh, man, just a crazy ball game. And again, late in the game, 2 crazy things happened. Union scored to take the lead, but the play got called back on the illegal motion. And then I will never forget, during the TV timeout, the streaker appeared from the south end zone and ran proudly the entire length of the field right in front of our huddle, and we could never get our kids' attention back again. Thank goodness we ran out of time so we could hold on for the victory, 9-6 over Union.
One of the classics, even though it's a loss, a triple overtime loss to Booker T. Washington, 43-37.
Yes, and all I can think of is that was the christening night of the Sharp Center. It wasn't quite ready yet, but we were encouraged to run out of the new building anyway because we'd been waiting 2 years, and we ran out, and in a district opener to Booker T, we lose in triple overtime. So I don't know if it was my vote or the seniors' vote, but we chose to not come out of the building again. So we went back to the old locker room, and certainly it paid off because we went on a pretty good streak after that.
You guys beat Enid in the state championship. That's remarkable because that game at TU's delayed a couple of times because of cold weather. The pipes burst in the locker room. What a mess that was. You guys had to come out and scrape. right?
Sure.
The snow and the ice off the turf to
Sure.
practice.
If you remember, Mr. Laptat, our booster club president, went and bought every snow shovel in Tulsa County, and our whole booster club and team went out, and we shoveled and shoveled and shoveled 8 inches of snow off our field so we could have a place to practice. And then, when you delay high school kids a week, you got to figure out what to do with them because they're chomping at the bit. And we think we're going to play, and then TU calls, we have to extend it another week. I didn't know if I was going to survive. And then the night of the game, it's 12 degrees. It's still big snow banks on the field, but our kids, Tanner Shuck, Jake Laptad, that crew, they went out and put on a show against Enid that night.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss the 06 season or that era with those kids that you just mentioned, because in 06, before the season, and you'll remember the date well, was the death of your starting center, Garrett Bennett.
Yeah, July the 12th, my anniversary. We had been out, I'm glad you brought that up. We had been out, we close out our summer workouts with a paintball festival where the kids get to go out, the seniors, and get to shoot the coaches about 5,000 times the paintballs. It was worth it, but it was rough. But Coach Calabrese and myself had stayed late to pay the bill, clean up and everything, and the kids had taken off to go back home. And, we're driving down the turnpike. I'll never forget it. I saw all the fire trucks and the emergency vehicles and from way off. And I remember telling Greg, Greg, this is not good. I mean, we were half a mile away, and sure enough, I broke the law and jumped the median and went over and got to visit with the highway patrol, and it was a rough day in Trojan, Trojan history, and probably easily the most challenging thing was going with the highway patrol to tell his mother. It was rough. And then maybe if there is a silver lining, it's just the way the team rallied around his honor and, won it. So it was a tough year, but a fulfilling year.
76 was his number, and I think you guys scored a total something like 76 points in the playoffs.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Not an accident.
No, not at all. And this shows you about the Bennett family, because they would come back after that group at our golf reunions. Keith Bennett and his family would come back. Sure, and we still give out the Garrett Bennett Memorial Award every year at our banquet to the most team-oriented offensive lineman that we have. So we still honor Garrett's name with an award. Then in 07, one of the games that's interesting is Jenks Union at TU, and NFL Films has heard so much about this rivalry that they come to document it. Yeah, and that production, I love it. I still watch it to this day. They did a wonderful job. 3 guys showed up with little handheld cameras, and they mic'd a few people up. We never knew they were there. And then a few weeks later, they put together this production that I thought did a great job of explaining to the nation what the Jenks Union rivalry was about. They went there to tell a story, and some of those don't work out that well, but this one, it was well done. The only catch is we didn't win. We're going in, if you remember, we're going in to take a 3-score lead, and if I remember right, the Rumpelheimer, Stephen Rumpelheimer.
Yeah, he knocks the ball loose from Ginther, and they run it in from 50 yards out. So we go in from a potential 3-score lead to 1, and we really never got the momentum back. Had a chance to tie it, and bobbled the snap. Got a bad snap on the extra point.
In overtime, and so I remember Dallas Beeler, who was the holder, coming back. Great teaching moment, and this is so typical and a great example of you. Not disappointed, but not upset. You just said, Dallas, the next time that should happen, just take it and run with it. I'm just another great example of you in a teaching moment.
Well, you just never can waste a crisis. You from the stands, it looks so easy to take a ball that's going 60 miles an hour and stick it on a tee and kick it in 1.3 seconds, but it's not that easy. But, that's just what you do. You have to teach them. They have to be able to perform under pressure and, never waste a crisis. Yeah. Just go and teach them what to do.
Speaking of Mark Ginther, that 06-07 back-to-back state championships, Dallas Beeler and Ginther in the same situation. Dallas is a quarterback, yet you move him to receiver. You guys take off. And Mark Ginther, Gatorade Player of the Year, what can you say about him?
He's ridiculous. That's all you can say about him. Here's what I tell everybody about Mark. Baseball was his passion. That's what he worked at. Football was his hobby. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, literally, for his career, he's nearly 75% completions. He doesn't throw the ball to the other team very often. When you insert Dallas Spieler, who could play inside, outside, and tight end, and doesn't care because we were really hard to stop. But Mark was on a different level than most high school kids at his quarterback.
I can remember going into his senior year, he played baseball all summer. He comes in the day before the Trojan preview, hadn't even practiced, and I think Cox actually carried it. Yeah. And he goes like 11 out of 12 or something. It's just like he's been practicing for months.
Yeah, so, our big decision is because he got selected for that area code. He's playing in all these pro baseball parks. He hasn't picked up an oblong ball in 4 months. And so the coach is going, well, should we play him? And I said, the deal we made with this guy is if he will share his talent with us, he's going to be our quarterback. Put him in there. He didn't even know what the snap count was. We had changed it, right? And like you said, he only threw one incompletion and threw for 300 yards and a half. Like he had never left. So I don't care what you say, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he was great. In 2008, 9, 10, 11, Kirk Frederick really got going with Union. They beat you 4 times in a row. And you didn't enjoy it, but you enjoyed watching the opposing players. And I can think of Tyler Gooch and many others at Union and other teams, the quarterbacks you faced over the years, Josh Fields, Matt Holliday, Matt Jones at Fort Smith, who went on to have a great career at Arkansas in the NFL, Brandon Whedon, the list, Sam Bradford, the list goes on, the guys that you guys were able to beat. You appreciated watching great talent on the other side.
Well, I did, and the Jeremy Smith, and just there were a couple of teams that Coach Fred had that were just ridiculous. You could compare them to our 97s or our 2001s. And you always respect and you appreciate that because there are all kinds of different challenges in coaching. But what I thought during that run for Union, there were a couple of years where they were pretty normal too, like we were. But I thought Coach Fred took a group of seniors, especially Ataya, some of those kids, and really gelled up a good team that you had to go out there and beat, and we couldn't do it. There was a couple of years I thought we had the ability to beat them, but we didn't get it done. So 2 things. He had a couple of great talented teams, and he had a couple of great teams. Yeah.
A situation, and you end up suspending yourself, basically, because of the Jarrett Lake incident and some other things. Can you go through that and kind of give us your account? Because you, in my opinion, were the sacrificial lamb for that whole situation. You knew that it was best for the program. Something had to be done, and you kind of got blindsided by that whole thing.
Well, a lot of valuable learning experiences happened in that year. Blindsided, yes, but obviously there were a number of things that I could have handled better and should have. Looking back, I'd never been in a situation anywhere, anything like that, so I really didn't know what to do. I just, in meeting with our administration, just kind of let them lead me through the process. And at times that was good advice, and other times it was not good advice. And it took a few weeks for me to figure that out. And so ultimately, what do you learn? You learn that you definitely need to, make proper decisions and make sure you document things and all that. Probably, for my life lesson is, you learn to forgive. It's the first time I think I've, in such a grand way, had people that were just like out to get me, and in my opinion and my attorney's opinion, at times created things to try to get me. So I became very bitter. We mentioned a long time ago in the show my Cleveland upbringing. Well, there's a few ways in the oil field you settle things, and usually it's just man to man behind the barn. And I kind of got that mad. So I learned in that if you stay bitter and you don't have the ability to forgive and face people's differences and make amends, you're the one that gets gobbled up. It's the one that tears you up. So I was in a very bad spot, and I always wanted to cast blame and things like that. So I learned to take responsibility. I learned to be proactive. I learned that forgiveness has a lot to do with how you approach things and how you recover. As we've said a couple of times, never waste a crisis, right? It only makes you better. But I thought Coach Montgomery did a great job. I thought that, the kids did what the kids do. They rallied and they're very coachable and made a great run, had a good chance to beat Union that year.
Mm-hmm. Out of that, and then we mentioned the 2010 late loss to Union. So you've lost 4 years in a row to Union. Kyle Alexander gets hurt in 2011. He comes back as a quarterback in 2012 and kind of leads you back into but you lost 2 of your first 3 games that year, and yet somehow you were able to rally the troops, come back and win 2012, beat Norman North in the championship.
And another example of really just a great group of kids who decided they wanted to be special. Just again, a couple of setback losses. A long dry spell, 4 years of not being able to jump that hurdle. We really emphasized the importance of having to be better, and credit Kyle and a great group of seniors for really gelling that team up, and just that was a team that was just hard to beat. We weren't completely glamorous, but you definitely had to earn it if you're going to beat us.
Jordan Smallwood, Trayvon Baree, who ended up as the best running back of all time stat-wise, Trey Miaszewski, Braden Caleb. But Brandon Wagner was on that team, and he was an offensive lineman that sometimes you'd play at tight end. That was fun. But, again, another rallying situation. Don't wait a crisis as you're a tragedy. Brandon Wagner's mom passes away that season to cancer.
Yeah, so, we knew that she was in hospice, and we knew the time was going to come. But as a head coach, you never look forward to that cell phone call in the middle of practice where you got to go grab the kid, put him in your car, and drive over there. It was tough, and we get over there, and you can prepare and you can brace yourself, but you're never ready. And the craziest thing, or not crazy, the eternal thing about that is she waited for Brandon to get there. It was just, I'll never forget it. And then for Brandon to just dedicate the rest of that season to his mom, and then the team rallied behind that. So
very special year.
Well, not a lot of people get to experience that. Right. So what a blessing.
Yeah. And of course, Brandon went on and had a great career at UCO.
Yes.
You're listening to an interview with Allan Trimble and myself, Don King, after he announced his retirement. And it's a presentation from Cox Communications, who has never aired this particular interview, from April of 2018.
2013 rolls around. Cameron Booty moves in from Dallas, becomes your running back, and a quarterback by the name of Cooper Nunley, who we all had seen grow up through this program with Dylan Stoner.
Yeah, and I watched Cooper and Dylan all the way, from the time they're itty-bitty, and they made plays their whole life, and that's something that never stopped. It did take a little, with Coach Maddox working with Cooper, to inject your offensive system into Cooper rather than I'm throwing the ball to Dylan because I like him, which is a pretty good strategy. But so I thought Coach Maddox did an amazing job of developing Cooper. He's super talented. One of the better natural throwers that we have. He's a lot like Mark Ginther. And of course, with the talent of Dylan Stoner and some of those other kids, we went through a pretty ridiculous few years offensively. Cameron Booty came in, and again had to learn our system, but more importantly, he had to learn, our environment, our trusting team. There were a lot of things that Cameron had to adapt to, and it took him a while, and it was a struggle. I credit Coach Greenwood for most of that. He's the one that took Cameron under his arm and taught him the ways and encouraged him. And when Cameron Booty, when he figured that out, he was a really good player. He helped us win.
And he had to play some defense, which he hadn't really done all year in the playoffs. Again, having to play a position that he wasn't really familiar with, and yet he excels. And then Cooper Nunley with his pass to Dylan Harding with seconds left.
I know. Just you can't make it up. That's what I tell everybody. If you look back over some of these plays and some of these players, you couldn't in your wildest imagination draw it up, but that Cooper Nunley would drop back late in the game, 70 yards away, against a safety blitz that we didn't block, and hit Dylan Harding in stride for the game-winning score. It's just ridiculous. But so many countless memories like that you'll just never forget.
Nunley gets him grouped up. Out of the shotgun, looks, fires over the middle, throws deep. Harding has it at the 50, to the 40, to the 30, to the 20, to the 10. Touchdown, Trojans. Here we go again. Nunley had time. He rifled the pass, and Harding beat the defender. Nunley hung in there, had a little bit of pressure, stepped up. Ogondere got to him and knocked him on his rump, but Nunley gets up and is running downfield. He loves the pass play to Dylan Harding. The Trojans, 20-16. Dylan Harding, the Oklahoma State University commit, and he just put himself into Jenks lore with that TD catch.
That was Cooper Nunley's best pass of the night.
Here's the quarterback under pressure, gets away, steps up, he throws deep. There's a man there, so is Jenks. They pick it off at the 30-yard line.
Dylan Stoner.
And the sophomore Stoner with the interception, and the cake is baked.
You've had several players, some that have become really good players, to move into the system, that move in from out of state. Tanner Shuck comes from Alaska. I mean, we could run down the list. But how is it that these kids feel comfortable in such a large school, in such a large setting, in such a huge setting like Jenks?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, and I just, I don't know how it evolved, but I go all the way back to my high school coach, how he made our football locker room and our football environment a family. I mean, we met together as a team, we ate together as a team, we had parent involvement, and some of the same things that we still try to do here today. I mean, I've always told, every set of coaches that we have for all 22 seasons, how would you want your football program to be if your son played here? What would you want to offer? What would you want to teach your kid if your kid played here? And I've always said, I would want my kid to play here, and I think that's, it's hard because, you hear the stories of the Booties and the Shucks and all those people, but I would say there's twice as many that don't make it because it's the commitment level here is not normal. It's hard. If you want to go through the things that, from the stands, it looks so fun. It looks, all you see is Dylan Stoner jogging out there and catching passes, but it's the other 9 months that make it pretty tough. So, but in the same breath, if we're developing young men and developing character, I think that football is still the best classroom for that. I think we do a good job of that.
Fake handoff. Nunley back, throws it deep. Man's there, back of the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown, Trojans on the catch by Stoner. Nunley stood in there, got rocked, threw it up for grabs at the back of the end zone. I thought he was throwing it away, and there was number 21 at the back of the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown with 2:55 remaining. The three-peat is complete. For the first time, a senior class has won 3 straight state championships. For the first time since 2001, the Trojans win this one 21-14.
You mentioned because of Lancaster leaving, and yet his demands on the program were kind of leaning that way, and yet here you are through the years to where it is a 12-month program. Is that something that you feel you kind of set, or did the program itself, because of its success, really demand that of the kids because that's what the kids wanted?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing I can say is watching Coach Lancaster come here and establishing his program and his protocol, I learned more from that guy in the first 2 years than anyone I've ever worked for. He gets more out of his time. He gets more out of his players. He gets more out of his coaches than anybody I've ever seen. And I found out really early that if you were going to beat Coach Lancaster, you're going to have to work really hard. That's just the bottom line. When that sweat equity that the kids put in, it's hard to overcome. So Coach Lancaster came in and he raised the bar big. We couldn't beat Midwest City in 92,
right?
But 93 we did, and I thought that that single-handedly raised the level of football for everyone, and I would credit him. We still use some of the same practice schedules, some of the same practice formats, all those things, because he was a little bit before his time. I think we carried that over, when I took over in 96, and And I think we not only used everything we learned from Coach Lancaster, but we also implemented, I thought, more team development, leadership development, spiritual development. We as we would say in coaching speak, we worked on that emotional conduit. We all want them to know their plays in their mind, but we want to win their heart over. We want it to be their home. And I think that's maybe what we did to take it to another level.
One of the improvements after you had that 4-year run where you lost to Union in the finals, I know you would go back and try to learn or to at least look at things differently on how you could get back on top. And one was probably Jordan Johnson, the hiring of Jordan Johnson as your strength and conditioning coach, full-time coach.
And you know, for not just obvious reasons. I mean, obviously he's nationally certified. He coached in the Big 12. He coached in the SEC. I mean, just a ridiculous amount of experience and cutting-edge technology and stuff. But that's not really what made the biggest difference. Having a guy that can look at the athletes separate and apart from their playing time on the field and relate to those kids. You know, when Coach Trimble has to coach them hard on the field and then walk in the weight room and do the same thing again, they get tired of that. I mean, and they should. So having another card in your deck that can help you develop that spiritual nature, can help you develop that emotional nature of the kids, it's changed everything.
Yeah. Because he really, after the season and during the off months, he really becomes, in essence, the head coach of the program, doesn't he?
Well, he is, because there are many times in the summer where we can't visit with them and things like that. But Jordan is so good because he's so experienced. If he sees a young lineman that's just getting demolished by his coach in practice, or he's having a bad day and he's not winning many battles and he's ready to throw his helmet down and go home and tell mom how hard it is, Jordan's smart enough to go over and approach the kid before he goes home and say, hey, listen, we'll have better days. This is what we need to do to improve what happened. And, he's a good teacher, so it really helps to have that guy in your corner.
Speaking of him and certainly other coaches, if you talk to the coaches over the years, they'll say the best attribute that Allan Trimble has, one of the best, is that he lets us coach our players. And certainly that goes hand in hand with this program and how good this program has been, plus the program players. We've mentioned a lot of great players in the last several minutes.
Yeah.
But what got you or what helped you earn 13 state championships, I think, were also the program players, the kids that grew up in this program that didn't get the notoriety, but yet it meant as much to them as probably anybody.
Yeah, and I wish, we could take the time to list those guys. I mean, just to pop off a few of them. Kerwin Vanfield, the greatest running back that no one remembers, right? Scotty McCoy. You could just go down the list of so many kids Austin Casillas. Those guys that give their life to the program. And when they go out there, it just means so blooming much to them. You can't beat them, But having, as a younger coach, working for, I think I've had 3 different coaching bosses in football. You learn so much what you would want to do, and then you learn so much what you would not want to do. And I always just felt like there were certain situations where, structure and guidance is needed with your employees. But you want to hire guys that want responsibility. You want to hire guys that want to be the next head coach at Jenks. You want to hire guys that want to be great mentors to kids. And when you get those guys, basically, you just fan their fire. You just throw some logs on their fire and let them go. And that's kind of just always been my philosophy. I can't tell you how many head coaches and former head coaches I've worked with, but it never bothered me to hire those guys. I mean, the better guys you get, the better I look, right? And that's just kind of how we do it. You hire some young guys that are aspiring, smart, hardworking, give them a few parameters, teach them what to do, and the next thing you know, it reciprocates and they're doing it.
Where do you think you got your leadership qualities from? I mean, your dad is a hard-nosed, worked his whole life. Mm-hmm. I mean, shoot, man, he's as tough as nails. And your mom is a very strong woman. You had great faith because of them. Where do you think you got your leadership qualities from?
That's a great question, and I don't know if somebody just poured that in my bucket early or I got that on my my journey. I watched my dad knock a football referee unconscious one time because he didn't agree with what he said. Not that saying that's leadership, but so I don't know if that's my, I'm a fighter, but I don't know if I've ever punched anybody out.
You've peeled some skin off some sideline officials, in your day.
I have melted a few guys, but I think just those touch points of growing up. I had a great high school football coach. I had a great high school wrestling coach. I had, Al Siddle was my baseball coach. In college, I had Ronnie Jones. I had great teachers, Dr. Kent Lashley. I mean, all these different people that I either played for or I had them in class or whatever it might be. So I think I don't know, you'd have to just credit it with a bunch of people that I've had some contact with over my life.
As we wind down here, you visit with the staff here. Terry Dimmick, Donna Nelson, Tommy Burns has been here for years and years. Tony Dillingham, you've worked for the majority of your career here. Tony is the athletic director. When you visit with them, they say one of the great things about Allan Trimble that people don't realize is your sense of humor. Your dry wit, and of course I've known it for years. Where do you think you get that from?
That's my mom's side of the family. I know where I got that. Sitting around her 4 brothers growing up, some of the funniest human beings. I mean, some great, great family time growing up. I mean, I miss those days. But Uncle Joe, Uncle Tate, Uncle Glenn, all those guys, yes.
And then the community has been obviously so good to this program. Think of long-time fans that have been fans way before we were even involved, back in the 60s, Paula Foster and some of the people from the 60s and 70s, and are still fans today. That's what has made part of this program and part of your journey so special, is because of this community.
And it's just like, it's bigger, but it's just like growing up in Cleveland, Oklahoma. It's everybody knows everybody. This is their high school. This is where half the people went to high school. Put out a Facebook or put out an email that someone's house burned down and watch what happens. They just rally. I mean, it's a very unique situation in this community. Just a majestic school. I mean, it's great expectations, but yet it's the heartbeat is the people. It's just it's no doubt why Courtney and I stayed. We raised our kids here. It's a great job. The expectations are very high, which is what gives you a chance to be successful. Makes it challenging at times, but this is a special community. I mean, if you wanted to raise a kid, not a bad place to start right here. So it's very unique.
And you said it's not just the football program that has made this school stand out. If you want to be great in debate, if you want to be great in show choir, there are so many things to offer that has pushed different programs, different sports as well in this school system.
Yeah, and I see, my Tori and my Tyler, I still see their Facebook where their second grade teachers are still, talking to them. And I just, so appreciative of the good people of the good people who breathed life into my kids. It's a great place. Going to miss it.
That all changed for you a couple of years ago, obviously, with ALS diagnosis. It's something, though, that you didn't know what it was, but you really had felt there was a change within you before it was diagnosed in the summer of 2016, really a year before that, right?
Yeah, at least a year. My wife says maybe longer than that. And in the typical Cleveland oil field fashion, just rub some dirt on it or take an extra aspirin or, so I wrote it out quite a while, I think. Just had some weird symptoms in my left hand. And then most recently, just the energy level. I've always been a hard worker, always been a push, go hard, don't sleep. And, man, just couldn't bounce back, And so we knew something was going on. And then months and months and months of testing before we figured it out. So, yeah, we knew for a while.
A lot of people, Coach, would certainly not handle it with the grace that you have. And do you credit your faith for that?
Well, that's the only thing you credit. I mean, you as a football coach, you're supposed to be a fixer. You got to You practice your plays, you get your team prepared, you have a game plan, and then if the game plan doesn't work, you have your secondary game plan and your third game plan. When do you run your fake punt? When do you go for two? You cover a lot of details that we call sometimes are ghosts because you may never see them. But when you get the terminal diagnosis, when you get the, hey, you know what, this one's undefeated. All of a sudden you realize Coach Trimble didn't have those answers. There's not a vitamin, there's not a Gatorade regimen or a push-up regimen that gets you through that. So it has to be your faith. I mean, it's. I would even credit it my faith long before the big disease, because there are a lot of times in football coaching that behind the scenes it's a tough deal. You lose a player, you lose a parent, you have kids make decisions that let not just themselves down but let everybody down. So there are quiet, tough times behind the scenes, and there's no doubt that my faith and prayer life is what carries you. There's no other explanation because the first couple of weeks when you've got a terminal disease, when you've got ALS, all that goes through my mind is who's going to take care of my family, who's going to take care of my kids, what this, what that. You go instantly back to defense mode, but then the grace of God and then your faith, and then you realize, oh, you know what? I've been reading all my life that He's got control of this anyway. So why don't you just go and let it have it, So that definitely I would say that's kind of where I'm at. And we've decided, Courtney and I have decided that, never waste a crisis. I mean, if our journey can, lend hope to other people, if they can get, some motivation or hope from our journey, then we hope we can share that with them.
Yeah, and that's where the foundation comes in.
Yeah, we're really excited. Finally, the Trimble Strong Foundation is up and running. It's a vision of a lot of people, not just Courtney and myself, but a lot of my friends. And our buzzword, our we want to be salt and light. We want to transform people by just injecting positive things into their life. We have some great friends who love to help people adopt children. We're going to help them, and we've got a little church that we try to sponsor down in New Orleans in the inner city that has a wonderful preschool and daycare system that we sponsor. We've got a little school down in Honduras that we sponsor, and we're looking forward. We're going to name our first leadership scholarship later this spring for a young man at OSU. So we've got a lot of things going on. We would love to recruit teammates for our foundation. If people are interested in just being salt and light to people and helping people along the journey, one person at a time, we'd love to have them join us.
Trimble Strong Foundation?
Yep, TrimbleStrong.org.
That would be the way to go. Coach, we've been doing this a long time, and I don't think our journey is over yet. We still got a lot of things that I know you want to get accomplished.
Oh, yeah. We'll run a few more laps together, Don. That's oil patch guys. We'll stick together.
Absolutely. Maybe a book someday.
We better hurry.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Certainly thank you to the committee for this awesome award. I still haven't been able to get my mind around it. Hard to believe that in 1995, when I stepped out of the coaching profession to head back into the oil patch, that the Jenks School Board and Dr. Kirby Lehman and Mike Means and Athletic Director Tommy Burns would give a guy who had no head coaching experience the opportunity to be the head coach at Jenks. They're here tonight, and I want to thank them for that opportunity. I had no idea that 22-year experience would be what it has turned out to be. But it's a wonderful opportunity. And certainly anytime you commit yourself and you work that hard with your career, I would be amiss if I didn't thank my wife, Courtney, and my two daughters, Tyler and Tori. We made it a family affair. Gone from home so much and working so hard. That's where my wife and daughters became great laundry washers and equipment managers and everything else that I didn't have time to do. So I'm very grateful and thankful for that. Also noticed that some representatives from our booster club are here tonight. Dan O'Keefe and his family. And if you know anything about Jenks football, we have some great parents. and some great supporters. So, Dan, I really appreciate that and everything you do. I've been pretty public about my diagnosis with ALS, and it's been a tough battle. I know with an audience this size, there are a number of you who face tough battles and tough challenges each and every day, but I've been pretty public about it. And one of the reasons is I want to be an encouragement to each and every one of you. I guess I would compare the ALS battle with like the Midwest City teams of the 90s or the Union teams of the early 2000s. It's a very formidable opponent. In fact, medical statistics would tell you that ALS is undefeated. But I'm always up for a good fight. As our players' motto is, if we don't win the game, our opponent is going to be very tired and very sore the next day. They're going to earn it. So that's kind of the way I'm going into this. So with all of that said, I want to be an encouragement to you. Living with a terminal disease has really helped me let go of the grip of some things that I used to really, really believe were important, but really, really are not. So as you run the race, let me encourage you. Love your family a little bit more. Be a little bit better husband. Be a little bit better wife. Be a little bit better father. And in whatever aspect or whatever job you're doing, be a great mentor and encouragement to others. I know my career has just been a ridiculous blessing. My wife still thinks I go to my hobby every day. It's been the greatest thing. I love being able to go do my calling each and every day. The Lord has blessed me in amazing ways. Thanks again for this crazy honor. I can't get over it, but I will cherish it the rest of my life. Thank you guys so much.
Don King, hoping you have enjoyed the visit with Coach Trim. Since we left off laughing about the book, we were able to get the book finished called The Golden Years before he passed. And you can get the book by going to JenksTrojanFootball.com. That would probably be the easiest way of telling you how to navigate your way because there are several ways to buy the book. But go to JenksTrojanFootball.com, look for the Allan Trimble Legacy icon, click on that, and it will tell you the different ways to buy the book. Also, look for the icon for Trimble Strong Foundation. And if you would like more detailed information on each state championship season, Coach Trimble and I went back and talked about each state championship season. And you can find that on my page, Don King. Click on the icon History, and then scroll down, and the top icon from there is Trojan Football History audio clips. Scroll down from that, and you will find all kinds of Jenks Trojan football information.